Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Black Forest Drive Safety Improvements webinar. My name is Sarah Fallon, and I'm the Manager of Strategic Communications and Engagement in the Loddon Mallee region of Regional Roads Victoria, which is part of the Department of Transport. I'll be your facilitator for this evening's webinar. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the meeting today. So thank you to everyone who has taken the time to attend tonight, including today's guest panellists. We really do appreciate that you're taking time out of your evenings, both participants and panellists. We have a few things to let you know before we begin the presentation tonight. As this is a webinar, you will notice that there is no function for you to have a camera or a microphone. This will help us to keep to the time allocated and ensure that we're hearing from the full range of participants that are here tonight. We definitely want you to participate in this session, so please use the question function to submit your questions at any time. And you'll see that that's that little black box that should be at the top of your screen or the bottom, depending on what version of Teams that you're looking at tonight. After our presentation, our panellists will answer the questions that you've posted throughout the session. If we can't answer your question today or we don't get time for yours, we will take the question on notice and we'll post all of the answers on the Engage Victoria page or get back to you via email if needed. Note that we will group similar questions together. Now, if you think of a question after tonight, you can always contact us at nrengagement@roads.vic.gov.au. Now, a reminder, please, to be respectful to all participants. Any questions or comments that are abusive or contain swearing will not be responded to tonight. Now, I'd also like to point out that we would have loved to have come to you in person. However, the current COVID restrictions simply just didn't allow this to occur. So we thank you for your patience and understanding to allow us to instead do all of our engagement online and extend our apologies if this meant there were people that could not participate. Now, if you know of people who were unable to participate, please encourage them to get in touch with us so that we can find alternative ways to share the information. However, everything will be available on our Engage Victoria page and some information also on our Regional Roads Victoria page at a later date, as well as the extensive question and answer on Engage Victoria that is already posted there. Now, I'm happy to introduce tonight's speakers and panellists. From Regional Roads Victoria, we have Melanie Houghton, the Director of Loddon Mallee. We have Glenn Bodilly, Team Leader of Project Scoping and Development, Barry Green, the Manager of Operations, and Eliza Murphy, Strategic Communications and Engagement Advisor. Our guest panellists are David Allen from the CFA. Thomas couldn't be here tonight, but we do have Martin Capel from the Gisborne Police Station, and we also have Phil Gray from the Department of Transport. Now, I'll hand over to Melanie Houghton for a brief introduction.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Sarah. I'm Mel Houghton, the Director for the Department of Transport in the Loddon Mallee. We are based in Bendigo, and our office covers projects across the entire Loddon Mallee region, from Macedon Ranges in the south through to Mildura in the north. Regional Roads Victoria, or RRV, was established in September 2018 to respond to community needs, focus on regional issues and improve the conditions on regional roads. On the 1st of July 2019, RRV and Vic Roads came together with Public Transport Victoria and the Department of Transport to form a new integrated Department of Transport. Operating within the new department, we are focused on coordinating the transport system and planning for its future. This approach will ensure we are responding to regional issues for regional people. Our office will be leading the Black Forest Drive Safety Improvements project that we are here to learn about this evening. We can see that there has been some misinformation shared about what we are delivering with this project and hope that you all feel much better informed after tonight's session. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of your input for this project and working together to provide safer journeys along Black Forest Drive for all road users. Move to the next slide. Community feedback is one of the ways that we identify potential projects, along with technical assessments and crash history. And sadly, there has been a significant crash history along the Black Forest Drive. We know that the Macedon Ranges community is passionate about their area, and over the years we have heard a lot of feedback from community members and users of this section of road. This has been through formal consultation sessions such as the Country Roads Tour in 2017, the drop-in sessions held in 2018, and through the phone calls, emails and social media posts that we receive. Through this feedback, we've heard that some of the key issues for locals along Black Forest Drive are road maintenance, the general road condition, as well as poor visibility and road markings, visibility of cyclists using the left lane and children crossing the road to access bus stops, especially coming around bends, high speeds of vehicles using the road, lane configuration, how the perceived lane configuration causes issues when different modes of road users are travelling at varying speeds and when accessing side streets and driveways, behaviour of road users, speeding and not considering other road users such as cyclists, high speed and low visibility at the Calder Freeway access points, and hazards from wildlife crossing the road. The Victorian Government has provided $6 million for RRV to deliver improvements to ensure the safety of every single person who travels along this road, no matter how they travel on it. Our proposals come after years of feedback, safety assessments and far too many crashes. I'll now hand over to Glenn, who will give us an overview of the project development and some of the history.
Thanks, Mel. Before the bypass opened, approximately 13,000 vehicles per day used this road. This has reduced significantly with up to 8,300 vehicles per day, including 5% of heavy vehicles now using the road. The latest traffic counts were taken pre-COVID. Despite the reduction in the number of vehicles using this road per day since the freeway opened in 2001, there's still a significant number of crashes along the corridor. Between 2002 and 2020, there's been sadly 4 fatalities, 26 serious crashes, 26 other injury crashes, a total of 56 crashes over this period with 78 people involved. And this includes between 2011 and 2020, 1 fatality, 18 serious crashes and 10 other injury crashes. In June 2017, 3 cyclists were involved in a crash on Black Forest Drive, seriously injuring at least 1. And in December of 2017, a cyclist died while cycling on the road after being hit by a distracted driver. The improvements we're proposing address this concerning crash history, as well as the feedback we've received from locals. We began with introducing safer speeds along Black Forest Drive earlier this year, extending the 60 km/h zone to Southern Road and Blackwattle Lane intersection in Woodend, and reducing the limit to 80 km/h from 90 km/h from Mount Macedon Road to Coates House Boulevard. In May 2021, following the submission of a business case for safety upgrades, the Victorian Government committed to $6 million of funding for further safety improvements to Black Forest Drive. Black Forest Drive will be repurposed so it can be used safely by all road user groups. And it's important to note that as an integrated Department of Transport, we look at all ways to travel safely and provide infrastructure that will benefit a broad range of users and not just one single user group. The new configuration will be 1 lane in each direction with a 3 metre wide painted centre median and on-road cycle lanes in each direction. The central median can be used by residents and visitors to safely turn into properties and be out of the traffic lane. The capacity of each driving lane exceeds the current number of vehicles using this road and will meet the needs of the community for many years to come. A dedicated bike lane in both directions with painted separation will improve safety for cyclists along this popular bike route. The bicycle lane will also provide a widened shoulder in case of a vehicle leaving the through lane. The width of Black Forest Drive will not change as a result of this project. In an emergency or on or near Black Forest Drive, drivers and emergency vehicles can use cycle lanes or the painted medians to get around hazards if safe to do so. And on a code red day, leaving high-risk bushfire areas the night before or early in the morning is the safest option. And our panellists from the CFA and Victoria Police can talk to this later during the Q&A session. We continue to work closely with emergency services to ensure the upgrades along Black Forest Drive meet their needs and the needs of the community in an emergency situation. Black Forest Drive is a curving wide road which makes it difficult for pedestrians and cyclists to cross. Pedestrian refuges will be located in the painted centre median at bus stops along the road, and we will use raised concrete to make them stand out. These provide safer locations for school children who are among the most vulnerable road users to cross the roads to access bus stops. It also provides a safe crossing point for cyclists. And the upgrade may include street lighting if required, and we'll conduct an assessment of the whole corridor. We'll complete a full reseal of the existing road surface and apply new line marking. The new surface will improve vehicle grip, particularly in wet conditions, and the new line marking will make it much easier to see each lane. The centre painted median will provide room for dedicated right turning lanes at the majority of the 20 intersections along Black Forest Drive. Locals will be able to turn safely into side streets, residential properties and businesses without the risk of being rear-ended. A common misconception is that vehicles are not allowed to use painted medians, but in fact, if they are a single painted line, they can be used for a short distance to get around hazards or turn if safe to do so. We've had a lot of feedback about debris spreading onto the road, and often this causes hazards along Black Forest Drive. We're going to be sealing the entrances to priority side roads, which will mean much less gravel and debris in the path of cyclists from vehicles exiting those roads. The budget we've currently received allows us to do some of the safety improvements that we've identified, and we'll continue to apply for further funds for other improvements that we've heard are important to the community. Future opportunities may include installation of overtaking lanes in places where it's safe to do so, additional safety barriers, and we'll continue to work with the local council to manage debris on the road. I'll now hand over to Barry Green, Manager of Operations, who will cover the known aspects of the delivery side of this project.
Thanks, Glenn. Hello, everyone, and thanks for your attendance tonight. Construction on this project is expected to begin in early 2022 and will be completed by late 2023, weather permitting. The project is currently in the development phase, which Glenn has outlined and his team is working on. Once your feedback has been collated, it will help us to complete the design and also to prioritise what we will deliver first in this important upgrade. We will have more information on the impacts and timelines once the design and the prioritisation is completed, and expect to be able to share more information on the delivery side in early 2022. Some of the things that you can expect during the construction, some traffic disruptions while works take place with minor delays expected. Some traffic management will be in place during the construction activities with speeds reduced to 40 kilometres in active construction zones. Single lane closures will be in place at times. There will be some impacts to driveways and intersections during construction, and we will contact the affected landowners direct to make necessary arrangements. We ask you to drive to the conditions for the safety of our workers, other drivers, cyclists and pedestrians, and we will keep the community informed of the planned disruptions through our website, social media channels and on-road signage. Eliza Murphy will now take you through how to continue to contribute to this project.
Thanks, Barry. Waiting for me to, you can see me now. So as detailed earlier in the presentation, there's been a number of ways we've heard from users of the road over the years, through direct contact and through engagement sessions such as the Country Roads Tour we undertook in 2017, and also the Macedon drop-in session in 2018. Over the years, we've had a lot of feedback about this road, which has helped us understand the needs of the whole community. This feedback has been combined with technical assessments and study of crash data, and has been critical to understand what safety improvements are required. In this latest phase of the project, we want you to give us your local perspective. Across the 11.7 kilometres of Black Forest Drive, which intersections and pedestrian refuges should be prioritised to be built first? You can visit the Engage Victoria site and complete the survey to tell us your views. You'll see an interactive map there that shows all the planned locations for the intersection upgrades and the installation of pedestrian refuges. And feedback closes at 5 o'clock on the 21st of October. We'll post the link shortly. It's also available on our website. We know that some of you have wanted to provide comment on whether the project should go ahead or not. So at this point of the project, we have now been given funding to deliver these upgrades. The opportunity now is to input into the final project plan. I'm happy to see lots of questions coming through, which is great. If you still have questions after today, you can contact us through our email address, which is nrengagement@roads.vic.gov.au. That was on the slides earlier, and that's monitored during business hours, Monday to Friday. What we'll do is we'll share the feedback that we receive and explain how it has contributed to the final plan on the Engage Victoria website later in 2021. Some of the questions and answers from tonight's webinar will also be published on the Engage Victoria site. Technical data and staging considerations will be combined with your feedback to develop the final plan. And we'll let you know in early 2022 what the design and deliver staging will look like. Okay. I'll hand you back to Sarah now.
Thank you, Eliza. So as Eliza said, we've had lots of questions come through tonight, which is fantastic, and we will try and get through as many as we possibly can. You can keep posting your questions throughout tonight, so go to town, and you'll notice that we're publishing them as we get through them as well. And we will also, remember, publish them on our websites. All right, so let's start picking out some questions. And I think, Glenn, the first question will go to you. Can you talk a bit more about the data for the traffic counts and the volumes of road for present and for future?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. The current traffic volumes were taken pre-COVID in 2018, and we haven't done any up to date since then. Due to COVID, they wouldn't be very valid. We've applied a growth factor to those numbers from 2018.
Thank you, Glenn. Now, there's a few comments about opposing the project as it stands right now. And we want to address this. So, Mel, if you're still there, can you please talk to us about, how we're contributing to the project at this point and what it means for the project?
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, so the Victorian Government allocated the funding for this project's delivery through the state budget released this year. As the delivery arm for the Department of Transport, we've been allocated the funding and we've been asked to deliver the project. So now we plan on working with everyone here tonight and other members of the community to develop up the project so that it aligns as best as possible with the requirements for road safety, community expectations, and all the feedback that has been collected on this project in the past. So the project will be going ahead, but tonight is the opportunity to really refine what that project delivery will look like.
Thank you, Mel. Dave, I think we'll have the next question to you. There's lots of talk about, emergencies like fire are quite scary. What should residents do if there is a fire and they need to use Black Forest Drive?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and good evening, everybody. David Allen, Manager Community Safety, CFA. Look, certainly Macedon Ranges does have a fire history, we all know that. But certainly the most important part of any emergency is to be well prepared and plan and to know what your actions are going to be. And our message is clear that people should be well prepared, know their risk environment, and indeed leave well before an emergency event occurs, particularly fire. Now that's potentially the night before or on the morning thereof. And the last thing we want is to have people in a dangerous environment, in smoke, driving in fire conditions that are hard to see, potentially putting themselves at risk. So our message is quite clear. They should have a well-prepared bushfire management plan, know what to do, have prepared themselves, know to leave early, or alternatively not to be in that locality during a fire event.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's some really good advice, and I'm sure that there's more information online that people can refer to. Following on from that, Barry, can you tell us more about the capacity of the road and if there is a need to evacuate, how the road will cope with the vehicles on there?
Thanks, Sarah. Glenn can probably correct me on this, but certainly a single lane based on its capacity levels has a capacity to cater for about 13,000 vehicles before it reaches its saturation capacity. So given the numbers that Glenn was talking about, you know, this road has the capacity at a single lane. In the event of an emergency, you know, vehicles, as Dave has said, the best thing is prepare and get out early. But in the event that people are caught, there is the ability, because it is a painted median, there are also painted bike lanes that, should vehicles, including emergency vehicles, need to use the full width of the envelope, that is not reducing, so that they're certainly able to do so should the need arise.
Thank you, Barry. Now, the next question, sorry, Glenn, this one's for you again. Has the usage of the road increased since 2011 when previous changes were put in place, or decreased? But what has changed since 2011?
Thanks, Sarah. Will correct Barry a little bit. The current capacity of a single lane is closer to around 18,000 vehicles, so well in excess of its current usage. So lots of room for growth in capacity of that road into the future. The usage of the road, as I would expect, would have increased since 2011 based on population growth. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but that would be my expectation. We can certainly take that one on notice and possibly expand on that.
Thank you, Glenn. We've got a couple of questions coming in about cyclists, so I'll try and sort of group them together a bit, and you know, maybe a panel member can nominate themselves to answer this one. So, do we expect that there will be growth in the number of cyclists in the area, and you know, how will the shared user trail that's proposed by Macedon Ranges Shire Council also cater for cyclists? So Glenn, Barry, Phil, who would like to answer that one? Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. My expectation that the usage by cyclists will increase. I think it's well documented that during COVID, the take up of cycling has increased dramatically. I've read some numbers where it's increased around 70%. So our expectation is that it will increase, and so this will be a great piece of infrastructure for those people taking up that pastime. The shared user trail will complement what we're doing. I think our on-road cycle lanes are probably a different user group to what would use the shared trail, so I think they'll both work well together.
Thank you, Glenn. We've got a question here about rural arterial roads with an 80k limit that also has a cycle lane. Barry, do you want to answer that one? You know, do we have many of these types of roads around?
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, there are quite a few of those around Victoria, and it's certainly, we can get a list of where they are in the immediate sort of areas, but just talking about Bendigo, anyone coming to Bendigo from Melbourne End, from Big Hill into Kangaroo Flat, that's an 80k speed limit with an on-road cycle path there. There's other sections out on the Calder Highway at Maiden Gully through there that is a single lane road that has an on-road cycle path where it's an 80k limit. One of the things here to consider is, obviously since 2011 too, there's also been a rule change, and maybe Martin might want to talk about that, but now we've got to give, in an 80 kilometre area, 1.5 clear to a cyclist on the road. And Glenn's touched on it, that you know, the type of cyclist that we're talking about will be different to the people that use the shared user trails, you know, versus the recreation cyclists versus the hard edge sort of road cyclists. So yeah, there are certainly examples of them around, and we're happy to provide further details of where they are if that's required.
Thanks, Barry. I notice I ride on a few 80k rides myself around town. Now, there's a few questions about the consultation being insufficient for this particular project, and I think I'll refer back, and before getting Mel to answer the question, refer back to the presentation that the consultation is an ongoing process. Although we have official moments in time where we reach out, we receive feedback all of the time. So all of that information is provided to the project team and included in when developing projects. Mel, do you have anything to add to that one?
I think just to follow up on what you've said, Sarah, it's really an important project for us to make sure that the outcomes meet the expectations and the requirements of the entire community, and focus on ensuring that the funding that we've currently been allocated, and as was identified earlier, potential for acquiring additional funding to add additional safety improvements to that stretch of road is always a work in progress. So that is why we are coming back here again tonight to go over what has been done in the past, to seek further input. And as Sarah's mentioned, it is an ongoing process. Tonight is not the end of that opportunity, but what we are talking about is an opportunity to feedback on the project that is being delivered. So it's important to focus on what are the improvements that you would like to see in this project.
Thank you, Mel. The next question is about the next phase of the project and when the design will be available for the public to review. So Glenn, can you give us a bit more of an idea of when we might be able to expect design to be closer to the end?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Most likely towards the end of this year, early into next year, and the design will be developed in different phases. So COVID lockdowns have slowed down that design process, but after we receive the feedback on the priority intersections to be upgraded, we'll stage the design of those intersections and those upgrades. So it'll come out in different phases, I suspect, but hopefully by the end of this year we'll have something to share with the community.
Thank you, Glenn. And I'll add to that we will be sharing that information. That will be we will be providing that information on our project page and on Engage Victoria as well. And I encourage everyone to sign up to our email updates. You can do that via the Regional Roads Victoria page. Sign up for our email updates. We won't be sending out mail outs frequently. We do prefer to deliver digitally. And if you know of anyone who can't receive emails, let us know and we can make special arrangements for them. Now, there's a question here about pedestrian refuges being installed and, you know, why are they being installed? You know, is there even many people using them? So Glenn, going to ask you again to talk about design and why we would be including pedestrian refuges.
Thanks, Sarah. It was one of the key things that came out in the community consultation in 2018, that there was no safe opportunities for, and I think it was mostly school children using the bus shelters along Black Forest Drive. So those sites have been selected based on that feedback and the locations of those bus stops and bus refuges. I think, does that answer the question, Sarah?
I think so, and also to note that we do work with Public Transport Victoria, who are a part of Department of Transport. We work closely with them to identify the needs for students as well, who, you know, our most vulnerable users. We know that kids don't always make the best decisions when crossing roads, and I know my own son doesn't always make the right decisions when crossing the road. Now we've got a question coming up about gravel and debris. So Barry, can you please get ready to answer this one? So what will we do about managing debris in the cycle lane?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. This is always one on some of our country roads. People like the look of the trees. They like to be within the vegetation, but obviously, as with David with the CFA, the trees can cause some issues. Particularly the storm event of June this year, we saw lots of debris that fell on roads. So part of this potential exercise is that we would look at resealing all of the full width of the envelope, and as Glenn's mentioned earlier, we're not reducing it any narrower than what the existing seal is. So all of that area would be totally swept, resealed, and then we would be looking at with an on-road. We're doing some work with local councils around different areas of how we can better maintain them. Are there different ways that we need to be doing it with smaller machines rather than simply just running the big brooms along the edge? So we, one of the other people within our office has already started some discussions with Macedon Ranges Council just in relation to how we may be able to better maintain those and sweep the bike lanes, particularly for the road cyclists.
That's great. Thank you, Barry. The next question, I think I'll get Phil to answer, please. The question is about cycling again. And why is it important to have separate lanes for cyclists? And we'll also be having a wide painted median. So why is that important for our cyclists?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And look, I think any road user would benefit from having their own space, cyclists in particular. At the moment, it's you know, you've got an unshared environment using the road shoulder, which is quite an unsafe place to be. Having a defined, clearly defined space for cyclists allows them to have their own space, and providing some sort of a buffer, albeit a smaller one, allows all road users to be able to position themselves more appropriately on the road and assist with providing that clearance, especially now the new passing rule is in place. Vehicles can keep to the right hand side of their lane when they're passing, and it just delineates the space much better. It also helps to visually narrow the road to encourage reduced speeds in that regard as well.
I think that's a good point, Phil, about the driver behaviour and that feeling of needing to drive safer when we've got those separations. And that segues really nicely to a question that we'll pose to Martin, please, in that how will these changes account for drivers that display poor behaviour and overtake other drivers using the bike lane, so on the left, or going through the centre median and things like that? What are the things that we can have in place for poor behaviour?
Yeah, good day, Sarah, and Gail, thanks for the opportunity to talk tonight. In reality, if the driver's going to display poor driver behaviour, they're not really going to be that fussed about what sort of road they're driving on. And we try and manage that as we would with any other road situation by education and enforcement, basically. If the community reports to us that there's ongoing issues of bad behaviour in a particular section of road, we just start by tasking our highway patrol officers or our local police to focus on that area of the road, the known trouble times, and combine some community education with some enforcement to deal with it that way.
Fantastic. Thank you, Martin. The key takeaway is that we provide infrastructure to make it easy for people to obey the road rules, and we can't always account for the people who will not obey them. But if you in the community notice something untoward, please report it. The next question is for Barry. How can we overtake slow vehicles? And we've heard a bit about this, about being slow vehicles in the area. So slow vehicles or hazards, what can we do with a single lane?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And Glenn's touched on this earlier with the single line configuration with the wide centre median. In the event that there is a slow moving vehicle and it is safe to do so, a vehicle can cross over a single line painted median in order to pass safely.
Thank you, Barry. Glenn, the next question is for you. So how will entry and exit to Black Forest Drive from side streets, and I think residents as well, how will that work? What provision are there for turning vehicles?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Largely, the ability to move from side streets and private properties won't change in their ability to do that, other than it'll be a much safer environment. For one, anyone making a right turn will only have to cross one traffic lane to exit into the opposite traffic lane. So that provides a much safer environment. Turning into traffic lanes, into side streets, along those 20 intersections, we plan on putting in dedicated turning lanes in the centred median, so that'll make a much safer environment as well.
And what about those turning left? What can they do?
So left out is probably the safest movement you can make from along any intersection, and the cycle lane, if it's safe to do so, that can be used as a bit of a transition to get into the traffic lane as well. So provided there's no cyclists in there, it would add to that that safer environment for people doing left turns.
So it'll be much easier for people to turn into their properties and not feel like they're going to be rear-ended because of those ability to use the bike lanes and the median for turning.
Correct, and we've heard from a lot of residents with concerns about particularly doing right turns from the traffic lane into their properties and into side streets and being rear-ended. This will allow, that centre median allows people to prop in that lane without being subject to vehicles coming up behind them, so a much safer movement.
Thank you, Glenn. Barry, question for you again. What will the interruptions and delays be like during construction? Can you give us a bit of an idea of what sort of traffic management in place and what sort of things can we expect? I know that you touched on it in the presentation, but what will it really be like for people?
Thanks, Sarah. Until we see the final design, we won't know what the full impact of the construction activities will be, but wherever we're doing things like resealing of sections of road, etc., we work on a delay of no more than between 2 to 5 minutes total in any sort of marking area. So with the reseals, and I was actually talking to our reseal contractors today, is that the maximum area that they can have under construction at any one time is 2 kilometres. So, and that includes all of their signage at the start and finish. So that's not 2 kilometres of construction area. That is the total work area in which they are working. So it should be a very short time frame. There will be some interruptions around some of the intersections, particularly around the bellmouth ceilings or the right turn areas that Glenn has already alluded to. It's just a matter of where those priority intersections will be.
And can you explain what a bellmouth is? Now that you've gone off camera.
Yes, I can. I can come back on camera. So the one of the issues with particularly the gravel debris coming out onto roads is where you've got a lot of the gravel roads coming up onto the seal. Tyres get wet, bring up the marbles onto the edge of the road. They get spread around the road. The idea behind sealing of the bellmouths is that section of road from the edge of the seal, generally back probably 6 metres or to the building line, whichever that might be, just to seal that particular area to cut down the amount of loose gravel that is then dragged up by vehicles up onto the main carriageway.
Thank you, Barry. So I hope that answers that question well. Phil, we've got a question for you again. Can you talk us through, will this road be safe for kids to ride on?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I suppose just going back to what was earlier discussed about some of the different cohorts of different user groups using this road. This one's probably more designed to target the recreational, the sports type riders. For children, we'd be suggesting using the off-road trail environment where they've got more space to be able to sort of ride in a fully separated from traffic. Notwithstanding, given the 60 km/h environment, younger people could be accompanied by their parents for short sections. But really, I suppose the type of design that this is targeting would be more the other user groups and the higher speed community.
Thank you, Phil. Glenn, another question for you. Talking again about the design, will there be rumble strips or audio tactile line marking between the vehicle and cycling lanes?
Thanks, Sarah. In some locations, there may well be audio tactile line marking, but there is a restriction of being able to put that in locations where there's no houses within around 150 metres. So just to manage the extra noise from that. So some locations will have that, and it's a really important safety feature for run-off road type vehicles.
Thank you. And I think people have probably seen them around. They're certainly all down the Calder, so I imagine that people know what they look, feel and sound like. The next question is for Dave. So if there is a fire evacuation and there is smoke, it's difficult to see and pass other drivers. Do you have any advice for driving in those sorts of conditions?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Obviously, driving in smoke is hazardous, and it can be very dangerous driving in thick smoke, and it is hazardous. So we do recommend again that people should not be doing that. They should have left the area well in advance of the fire situation, and not be actually utilising the road, any roads, particularly during the heightened time of the fire. Because it's unsafe. It can be unsafe. There are traffic users, could be multiple traffic users. There could be emergency vehicles also on the road. So our advice is to leave well early, not to be in that predicament. Thanks,
Dave. Mel, I've got a question for you now. This question's about this road's currently an arterial road under the responsibility of the Department of Transport. So are we planning on transferring that responsibility to Macedon Ranges Shire Council?
Hi, thanks, Sarah. No, we are not currently considering that.
That's a very simple, short answer. Thank you very much. We are going to continue being responsible for Black Forest Drive. Martin has a further comment about the audio tactile line marking and modern cars. Do you want to just talk to that, Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. My understanding is that with new road construction and lane markings nowadays, that the line marking materials used, the paints and whatever, are much more user-friendly for people who have modern cars with the autonomous safety features such as lane assist technology and that sort of stuff. I just wonder if anybody in the panel can confirm that, just to help alleviate some resident concerns about the safety factor of new lines.
I can confirm that my car beeps like crazy when I go over a line, and that there are other vehicles that will actually have an assist to pull you back in the lane with the more modern vehicles. Thank you, Martin. The next question, sorry, I just need to queue that up, is a question to Glenn about how is changing the configuration of the lanes to single improving safety. Can you explain a bit more of the reasoning about single lanes and why it's safer?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. What we found is with the two lanes that we're finding that there's a lot of rear end accidents, and by taking it back to one lane, it gives us the ability to have that centre median and giving the facility for turn lanes in the centre median. So it takes those drivers out of the traffic lane. It also, having the separate, the single traffic lane and the centre median and also the bike lane, it provides a buffer between opposing vehicles. So currently, if you have two fast lanes, the separation between those vehicles is quite minimal. So if a driver becomes distracted and might veer a little bit out of their lane, they can quite quickly end up in the opposing traffic lane. So having that buffer in the middle does provide that bit of separation. And similarly with the cycle lane, you know, somebody who might become distracted and veer off the road a little, they've got that recovery time of that sealed shoulder and bike lane.
Thanks, Glenn. That was really helpful. The next question is about, and I think, Glenn, this will be for you again. Sorry. It's about the centre median. Do we expect a bit of debris to be coming into the centre median, and what can we do about that?
Yeah, look, I'd expect the centre median to probably have less debris than a bit like Barry talked to before, that it's mostly the shoulder and the traffic lanes where we've got unsealed accesses and vehicles drag that debris and gravel out onto the traffic lane. So less likely to have gravel and debris in the centre median.
Thank you, Glenn. Stay ready because the next one's for you as well. It's about design and whether stormwater will be a part of the design. Apparently there's some issues with overflow across the road during rain events.
Okay, no, look, it hasn't been a part of the design at this stage, but we're certainly open to looking at any safety issues that might present. So if we're able to get a bit more detail on that, it's certainly something we can look at.
So those people who have popped that in our Q&A, if you could please email us at nrengagement.vic.gov.au with the locations and what's going on, that will help us with our design and conversations. Okay, we have a question now about an area of the road that's a little bit further along near Coles in Woodend. Why isn't this being considered as a part of the project? Barry or Glenn, would you like to answer that one? Thanks, Barry.
I can give Glenn a bit of a break.
Thank you.
Certainly, that intersection has been the subject of certainly some feedback that's been received. Department of Transport is currently working with Macedon Ranges Shire on a separate piece of work looking at all of the intersections through the centre area of Woodend. And once that piece of work is complete, we would then be partnering with Macedon Ranges Shire to look for funding opportunities to improve the identified intersections. And they're pretty much from the lights on the south side of the railway line right through to probably the top of the hill where Romsey Road goes off. So that section is currently under investigation by a study that's partly funded by the Department of Transport and partly funded by Macedon Ranges Shire.
Thanks, Barry. So it's been looked at and we should watch this space, I think, is what we can take away from that one at this time. Mel, we've got another question about consultation and you know what it means for the project. You know, is this the only consultation and what are we doing? And Mel, are you able to answer that one at all?
Yeah, I'm sorry if you can hear my son in the background. I'm doing my best to keep him contained. The consultation, we were advised that this project was awarded to our region to deliver with the state budget release earlier this year. So the consultation work that has been done in the past has been brought together by the team and revisited. In addition to the consultation that is happening tonight and that has been ongoing through our social media posts, etc. So it's a bit of a collective of us bringing back everything that has been done in the most recent past and adding to that these conversations that are being had now and all the brilliant questions. I was actually just flicking through all of the questions and reading them then. So there's some really great points in there. There's some really great information that we can take to bring together and review everything that we're proposing to date. So that's the consultation that we've got to work with for the delivery of this project within the timelines that have been identified.
Thank you, Mel. And yeah, we will continue to communicate throughout the entirety of the project. So once again, please sign up to our email updates. That is the best way to stay up to date with the most recent information. We've got a question here that I think will go to Barry, and the question is, you know, what do we do about wildlife and potential wildlife collisions?
Yes, a bit of a never-ending problem on some of our country roads. We have some of the highest rates of accident animal strikes in Victoria, particularly over around Heathcote, heading over towards Seymour, down around the Macedon Ranges. It is very difficult. It becomes a bit of a balancing act between people wanting to enjoy the amenity that is, you know, things like Macedon Ranges and the areas along Black Forest Drive without the erection of rather large, very at times quite ugly fencing that may reduce animal strikes, particularly kangaroos, not so much the rabbits, maybe the wombats. But it is a bit of a vexed question. We urge drivers to drive to the conditions of which they're at and make sure that, you know, we are taking the best possible precautions, because at any given time something can can drop out, but we're certainly not proposing any large chain mesh fencing, or in the example of Puckapunyal, we're certainly not proposing any electrified kangaroo fencing.
Goodness, Barry. So the takeaway is to continue to drive safely, keep an eye out. I know that you know, I live in a area full of roos, and I've got to keep an eye out at those key times of the day. The next question is about weather conditions and the design of the road to weather conditions. So Glenn, I'll get you up for this one. Things about black ice and things like that. What are we doing about that?
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, look, we plan to resurface the entire length of Black Forest Drive as part of this project, so that will provide increased grip in those wet type conditions. We can basically use what we call a higher polished stone value aggregate in the resealing, which helps with longevity of that friction. But ultimately, we can't really control black ice as such. But the reseal will certainly provide increased grip for motorists along there, and the updated line marking, it'll be it'll be high luminosity, we call it, type line marking, so it'll provide better delineation as well. And I go back to my point before about having that buffer with the centre median and the outside bike lane. If somebody does lose control, it provides that separation between vehicles, which also helps. But obviously, black ice is not a great environment to be driving in. We have ice warning systems along Black Forest Drive, and you know, we always encourage people to drive to the conditions. So.
Thank you, Glenn. So there was a lot of technical information in there, but essentially, to sum it up, the road surface and the line marking will be the safest that we can make it, and to continue to watch out for black ice during those key areas and be careful.
And Sarah, just on that one, it's not about rebuilding the whole of the road. As Glenn said, it's around resealing what's there, but what we will be doing is looking at where we can, using what's called regulation, so using other materials to take out any of the larger depressions that may hold water that then forms black ice, that may form depressions that holds debris. So as much as possible, before we do any reseals, we'll go through and do some regulation work to take out as many of those, the dips and the bumps.
Thank you, Barry. I think that will improve the surface considerably. We don't have time for many questions, so I'll talk to question about travel time. So Glenn, if you can pop your camera back on again. Will creating the new road with a single lane increase travel times?
Potentially, there is the possibility for slower vehicles, people getting caught behind slower vehicles, but as we've mentioned, that the centre median can be used where it's safe to do so for overtaking around slower vehicles and hazards. So there's potential there for slower vehicles, but if we look at the length of the route, and most of the traffic travels between Woodend and the freeway, you know, I think it's probably about 5 or 6 k's long, that section. So a slow travelling vehicle, and it's already down to 80 kilometres. So I think it's only going to add minimal time to a journey if you do happen to get caught behind a slower vehicle.
So the average journey is unlikely to be impacted, except for if it's a particularly busy time or if there's a slow vehicle, which may or may not happen. Thank you, Glenn. Another one for you, I'm sorry, and this might well be the last one. It's talking about the pedestrian refuges. You know, how are they designed, and will they provide any physical protection for kids and cars entering the median?
Yeah, look, there's no real way of stopping vehicles from completely keeping them separate from those refuges, but they do offer a raised concrete median that is considered a bit of a refuge in the centre, and where these will be placed where it's safe along at those locations where we've nominated for the bus stops and so forth. I hope that answers the question. And where it's required, there'll be lighting provided at those as well to increase that visibility.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Question now about the type of asphalt that we'll be using. So Barry, maybe you can answer that one. Do we know what type of asphalt we'll be using? I know Glenn's already sort of talked about that and what it will provide. Can you go into any further detail?
Yes, Sarah. Not much more than what Glenn's already provided. He's talked about the stone that we would use. It's not an asphalt that we would be referring to. This is a spray-on seal, where it's the larger trucks that spray the black bitumen, then the stone is laid over the top and then rolled into the black bitumen emulsion. The use of what we call microsurfacing is the smaller type of asphalt material that takes out some of that regulation. So that will occur underneath and then a new seal placed over the top.
Thank you, Barry. Now we have come to the end of our presentation and I don't want to hold anyone up any further tonight. So thank you everyone for your participation, both our panelists and our community members that have joined us tonight. So once again, to stay informed, sign up to our updates and keep checking our web pages. We have a lot of questions tonight. I know that we haven't gotten through them all. We will respond to those during our on our Engage Victoria question and answer page. Give us some time to get through them and provide all of those answers, and we'll send out an update to those who have subscribed to let you know that that has been updated. So thank you very much for your participation tonight and enjoy the rest of your evening.